You're listening to the Redneck Hockey Podcast, the official gatekeepers of the Trip Tracy fan club and the only Carolina Hurricane show fueled solely on barbecue, Bowberry biscuits, and Storm Brew. As always, I'm your host, Griffin Daughtry, and I'm joined by my fellow Caniac co-hosts, Connor Weeks and Alex Pace. This week, we discuss the first round of the playoffs, some infighting within the Caniac community, and answer some questions from our faithful listeners. If this is your first time listening, please consider subscribing to the show and following us on Twitter and Instagram. Without further delay, let's do that hockey. I told Pace I'm going to invite Jacob Slavin to come on the podcast after the season's over to talk about his faith in hockey. That's the only way you're going to get that man on the podcast. If he can evangelize.
He's got a strong brand, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We should probably obviously Connor and I were missing last week. We were out of town, but big shout out to Mike for coming on and doing an interview. He had some really wholesome content, the stories about his son, going to games and whatnot. That was really, really cool to hear. A lot of people probably know this about me, but a couple of years ago, my dad passed away, and one of the biggest like strengths of our relationship was through sports. My dad grew up a Washington Redskins fan, and I grew up a diehard Panthers fan, and the strength in my fandom for the Panthers converted my dad over, and we had a lot of really good shared memories. So it was neat to hear Mike talk about him and Mikey's relationship with the Hurricanes, and I kind of related to that from, I guess, Mikey's perspective.
Yeah, that was a really cool conversation. It got me excited about the prospect of future fatherhood. It's like, man, way to really pitch fatherhood. It's like before that, it just sounded like changing diapers and screaming babies, but it's like it'd definitely be fun to have like an 8-year-old son, like someone you can like talk to and bond with. I don't really want to hang out with babies. They look like aliens.
Yeah, it was a good episode, a good interview, and we're glad to be back.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are back, and now I can we can give the people what they want.
Redneck Hockey Podcast.
Like 3 dumbasses talking about hockey. That's what I like to listen to every week. Wholesome dad content, financial discussions. Not for me. I like 3 morons talking hockey. I think Pace slammed his head. No, he's got brain freeze.
Massive brain freeze.
That's what happens when you drink a margarita.
Yeah, it was, at least it's a victory margarita, after we had a huge win last night. Albeit, I will say, not exactly the most convincing win. I didn't come out of that going, yeah, we're definitely going to win game 6. But it was a huge win for us, probably the biggest win since game 7 against the Caps.
Yeah, it was tight. We didn't lead the entire game.
Just keep Wes McCauley away from us. Maybe we can win a game. I cannot believe. I mean, we can go ahead and just dive into that, calling that goal back. Like, what in the actual shit was that? Like, honestly, I have no idea what I saw. I've never seen the Canes fans take booing to be louder than their cheers. You know what I mean? That was pretty wild.
Yeah, as loud as they were last night was the boos. I was there too. I was like, this sucks. It was a really bad call. And then watching it live, thinking like, watching the replays like the next morning, I was like, okay, what did I miss? Maybe there was something. Maybe there was an interference, and you couldn't really say anything.
Well, it's like the only contact between Saros and Fogle was Saros put his glove hand on Fogle's back. You know what I mean? Like, so that he could like look around him. And then who was it that got in the way? Yossi was the one that was literally the one that interfered. I was like, I just couldn't believe they called it back during the playoffs. After it's not like they didn't review it. You know what I mean? Like, they reviewed it and still gave me that bad, terrible call. Like, what a bunch of crap. And I expect better from Wes McCauley. I've said that way too many times this year.
It's like I said before, you just gotta, when it goes to goaltender interference and they're reviewing it, you just gotta flip a coin and be ready for both. You gotta prepare yourself for both outcomes. Like, all right, what I think I know, I just don't know.
Yeah, it's really funny. When that happened, I saw it. I was watching on TV. I wasn't at the game, but when I saw the replay, my first thought, like, immediately was, no way they call this back. And then before they went to the review, like before they actually were taking a look at it, I could hear Connor in the back of my head saying just what you said, because we've already talked about this before. Like, you have to be okay with it in both ways. And this was the one time I let myself not be okay with it. I was like, there's no way they're going to call this back. And sure enough, It did. I even told I was texting one of my friends, and he's not like the biggest hockey fan. He just kind of watches like the big Hurricanes games. And I told him, I said, no way, this is a good goal. And then before, like he probably even read the text, they said no goal, or it was so disappointing.
Yeah, I can't remember how many storm brews I had last night, but I definitely remember at some point leaning over to Chelsea when they were reviewing the play, and I'm like, $5 as they call it back. She's like, there's no way, because we just watched the replay. I was like, they're going to call it back. And of course they did. And everyone lost their mind. But Pace, you actually have some extra knowledge that Connor and I don't have since we were at the game. What did the Supremes leader, Trip Tracy, have to say about the call?
Oh, he was livid. I knew, like, he didn't even think that they should have challenged it. He said, going into the replay, he said, this is a bad challenge. Like, he understood, it's kind of a dice roll because it's a tie game. You're playing on the road, like you might as well give it a swing. But he thought for sure we were about to have a tie game going into the power play.
I got some family in Nashville that are Predators fans on my mom's side. So one of my cousins was texting me, and he was pissed at John Hines for challenging it. They're gonna give a power play to us and things like that. And he was like, "There's no, that was a really dumb call. To challenge it." But it's just, it's a coin flip in the playoffs or in the regular season whenever it's challenged. I remember today I was looking at I was just looking at the threads and people commenting on the goalie interference, and you'll always see like a post of someone posting the rules, like the posting like,
Oh yeah,
I think it's rule 69 or something. That's the goalie interference rule.
it's a nice rule.
Yeah, nice. And it's so like you go all the way down the list, and almost every single thing could be like, I can see both ways. That it's really, there's so much interpretation to like the rule. I think it needs to be amended or something. There's even one bullet where if you're standing in the crease and not even touching the goalie, if you can't like see around you, then that's goalie interference.
Well, like I saw a lot of people talking about it on Twitter. It's like every game of the year, this is a no call. Like it's straight up a goal. And it's like the moment you like put this call into play, it's like almost every goal in every game becomes an episode of goal interference.
Yeah, I mean, if you look in football, there's a similar rule that drives fans crazy. It's the catch rule, and like nobody really knows what's a catch and what's not a catch in professional football. And they amended it a couple of years ago, and I think it's a little bit better now than it used to be. And the problem was that it was like too well defined in the rule book. And Adam Gold actually brought this up on his most recent post game podcast. He said, maybe they just need to like take a step back and just like, it doesn't need to be like someone in the crease, anything like that. It just needs to say, is the goalie being impeded? That's it. Like, it's just there's too many variables going into it. And my second thought that I'm having right now is, like we probably would have absolutely slapped them if we had gotten that goal last night. Like from what I could tell, like I'm not at the game, obviously, but the roof blew off the place because it was 2-2. We were about to, we would have gotten a power play if the challenge hadn't gone through. Like, I really think that we would have just taken that game and ran with it. Instead, we got grinded down to a little nub in the middle of the third period and had to claw our way back into that game.
Yeah, well, it's like, look at how demoralized the Canes fans got after that goal. Like, even I struggle to stand up and yell, and usually I scream a little too much. But like I was tweeting at Mark Williams, who's the guy, he always wears the giant chub suit and does the crazy dances. He sits in like 128 or whatever it is. Like he posted about how he ripped up his chub suit during the game the other night, and I was like, dude, you were like the real MVP because they put you on camera right after that shitty call, and then you did your crazy dance, you ripped off the chub suit, and then you grabbed the water bottle and just dumped it on your head. And I was like, and that was like literally the only thing that brought the Canes fans back to life. And I'm like, honestly, like we might have gotten a major assist from old Mark Williams there.
Yeah, it was dead. It was we were down 1-2 for so long that the Canes fans were just like,
But
people won't go.
If you're wondering why Connor's voice sounds like that, it's because Connor was at the game last night and his vocal cords were not prepared to scream as much as he did. My vocal cords are okay because I got to go to games 1 and 2 when Connor and Pace were out of town. So I'm like a I'm like a seasoned veteran of like drinking. It's the same thing with yelling. I can handle my yelling. But yeah, so game one, man, that was quite the experience because we didn't really get to talk about it because last week I interviewed Michael, and then you guys were out of town and you just got back this weekend. But game one, I mean, for it still being like 12,000 fans, it felt like game three against the Capitals. I mean, it was loud, like really loud. I think everyone, like Rod said it pretty well. It's like people just wanted something to celebrate and yell about.
Yeah, you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think last week, Mike, kind of summed that up well. You can kind of see when we were dealt a really bad hand for about a year, and sports was a big, turning up the page like, oh, wow, like things are going to be a lot different. We're not going to be able to go to these like mass events anymore. But the NHL is kind of like one of the first sports. It just kind of happened out this way, like the sports are opening back up, though the world's, or at least the US, is kind of opening back up. And it just so happens that it's at the perfect time for the NHL playoffs, where it's one of the most raucous, games that you can attend as a sports fan.
It felt almost like Providence, really, that Cooper would lift the ban and that the CDC would lift the mask ban, or they would release their statement about masks all in like that same like day. It was like literally like 4 days until puck drop for game one, and like all of that happened at one time. I was like, man, this is almost like meant to be. Someone tweeted it was like Don Waddell used to work in Atlanta or something like that. Maybe he knows someone in with the CDC, and I'm like, well, maybe maybe he's pulling strings.
Yeah, a lot of places were having, you go into a restaurant and the waitress and the waiters weren't wearing masks. This is fine. It's weird now. It's more normal.
Yeah, but going back to something that Pace brought up and something that Michael talked about last week, like I think the worst part about COVID was how political it got, and so it became, I mean, it was just divisive politically, and not having sports was something that really hurt because people really don't take into consideration how big of a community like the Canes and other sports teams foster in their areas. I think Mike said it doesn't matter how you vote, where you're from, who you are. We can all come together and agree that we love Canes hockey, and like the community and the team does a lot for everyone. And so when you don't have sports, but you've got this divisive plague basically going on in society, it was really almost kind of brought the worst out of people, and you didn't have the one thing that can really bring people together.
Like the Olympics,
Yeah. Like the Olympics does wonders for bringing people together, even for just a moment.
Mm-hmm. Michael Phelps, Sebastian Aho. It's not really
basically the same.
What's the difference? Yeah.
Ice, water.
Yeah. If we wanted to get back
forms
to game one, because we got a little off topic, but if we wanted to talk about the actual game, it was probably the closest that the Canes and the Preds have played to how the regular season series went. The rest of the series has been completely different from that. And I think Nashville kind of came out and they used that same old blueprint that we keep talking about, where they were like, all right, we're going to come out and try to bully the Canes and, knock them around a bit. And it just wasn't working. Like we just, kind of brushed it off and scored a bunch of goals, especially in the third period. That chart that you posted, Connor, was crazy. Like they just took over in the third period.
Yeah, the XG model that Money Puck uses is really cool because it has like, you can do like flurry adjusted chances, and analytics have come a long way with tracking game to game per game basis. And it even has like win probabilities on there. And then the XG models track a lot. They're usually favorable for the Canes and teams that shoot a lot. And it really just kind of uses an average goalie. So like if you have a goalie that, steals the game, it doesn't usually track that much. So if you just have a good goalie and that's your team, most probability websites and analytical websites will chart your team as like not very good usually, things like that. But yeah, that game one, we really took over in the third period, and that's kind of been the Canes' MO the whole season. And we've just gotten better as the game goes on too.
Game one still definitely had signs of it being a long series. Like I know that was probably our best game as far as like points on the board, but there were definitely moments during game one where I was like, this is not going to be an easy series. It wasn't until we shut them out in game two where I was like, okay, maybe the Canes could sweep, I'm knocking on wood, maybe the Canes can sweep Nashville. And then, I thought the reffing was atrocious in game two. Honestly, the fact that we pulled a shutout against them, they had 8 penalties on us, and we got 2 power plays the whole game.
Yeah, it was like 7 or 8.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I was like, there's no way they're going to call this bad of a game when we go to Nashville. And then they did the exact same thing in game 3 and game 4. And I was just like, what in the hell is going on?
When I look at the series in context now, game 2 should have been the game that we were all like, okay, this without Slavin is going to be a very tough series, because at the time we were like, oh, maybe, Brady Shea will step up and pick up these minutes, Shea and Pesci. But we were able to dictate the matchups. Rod put the guys in a situation to succeed. We didn't have to put people out there hanging out to dry. I mean, look, Bean got poured on like a he got waxed around the game.
He's getting taken through the ringer. They know he's little and they're just abusing him.
Yeah. We couldn't hide him, because we were the away team. I mean, it was good. I know game 3 was kind of rough because it wasn't our best game. And game 4, obviously, we had a chance to win, but we didn't. I wasn't too concerned that we lost either of those because we could have won either one. It wasn't like we got destroyed, but it was pretty concerning the way that they played those games and the way that Nashville was kind of able to take advantage of some of our pretty glaring weaknesses.
Well, the big problem is we really struggled to put pucks in the net against Saros. And so if the Canes struggle to score and they're constantly on the penalty kill and you're giving Nashville all these chances, it creates an environment where it's a way closer series and a way closer game than it should be. I mean, that's the thing that I learned after game 2 was like, wow, if you can give Nashville 8 power play chances and they still can't score a goal, they're really not the better team in this series. Like, we are clearly the better team right now. But the problem is you give 3 games in a row with like the most atrocious reffing I've seen in my entire life. And it's like, that's the reason we're going into game 6 right now. We shouldn't be here, and yet here we are.
Yeah. I think we also, as a fan base, kind of underestimated, or I think undervalued Nashville a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think, we kind of were like, yeah, we're, we had the 6-0 record that did help a little bit, but they were, most of them were tight games. And now with UC Saros being kind of like the second coming of the last couple, the back half of the season, he's hot and a hot goalie. He was, can change things in the playoffs in the game 7.
Yeah, well, look at what Tuukka Rask did against us in the 2018-2019 series against Boston.
Yeah,
absolutely
you can't undervalue your goalie.
Us out.
Yeah, you can't undervalue a
team.
That
game 3 game, you guys remember we had those great seats, like probably 7 or 8 rows up, and the first period we outshot Boston like 21-7, and the score was 1-0. Or like,
yeah.
But and I was thinking the whole time, I thought to myself, like, man, we should have been up like 2 or 3 goals. That's going to come back to bite us, and sure enough, it did.
Yeah. Nashville's they got John Hines as their coach, who's known to be really bad, but they've got a good roster, and they underperformed most of the regular season, so it's not like a big surprise to see them match us a little bit. And it's kind of like Dallas, where they're a little bit of a sleeping giant. They've got Yossi, they've got a lot of good players on their D. Some of their centers are kind of washed out, but they have, they're still talented and can challenge us. It's a close series, and I think a lot of us Canes fans are kind of like, why aren't we just steamrolling them? Nashville's a good team. I know it's
the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's the playoffs, and
everything's different in the playoffs.
Swept the Blackhawks not too long ago.
Something that has been a little bit concerning to me as the series has gone on, like I mentioned this about game 1, like Nashville was trying to bully us and it wasn't really working. They are definitely getting under our skin now. And I mean, you can see it; it's noticeable, and that is a bit concerning to me, because once you get those guys off their game, like Svech or whoever, like Svech took that nasty hit. What was it? It was in game 5. He took that nasty hit in the boards and got up immediately, like dropped the gloves. I was like, oh, come on, man! Like we don't need another one of this.
Yeah, he's been waiting to use those boxing lessons for a while. It kind of reminded me of the 2018-2019 series with Boston when Brad Marchand just completely ran circles around Justin Williams' head. It was like a little like a little gremlin on the ice pulling jokes, and he was basically a trickster figure. And it almost Holla kind of gives me the same vibes, the way they embellish calls, and I mean it's just like bad acting, you know what I mean? It's like watching a soap opera on ice, and you're just like watching the refs just eat it up. Like, yep, that's a call.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Holla played with a lot of these guys that were played in that playoff series, you know. So like he knows the buttons that they have to push. And he played a lot with Natchez, and like clearly they did not get along. You know, there's a lot of reports out there that Holla was just like not a good team guy when he was here. Clearly he knows he can get under their skin if he does certain things.
Well, I'm going to say this about the Natchez Holla beef, and I know this is going to get me, it's going to get me drugged from Kane's Twitter, but I have a feeling that Holla didn't like playing on the line with Natchez because Natchez, he has his moments where he likes to take the initiative himself, and he will try to make a play, and he doesn't care if you're there to help him or not. You know what I mean? Like he's
just
he's kind of bad about not passing and trying to make the play on his own. And so I can see Holla, who is a very successful player. He had a very good couple of seasons in Vegas, was a big goal scorer for them, feeling like Natchez tried to outshine him on the line. And I can see him feeling overshadowed by Natchez, and that might be the source of their beef. And so Natchez might be like kind of confused by it, and then Natchez being like, oh, well, or Holla being like, you were a dick, you stole my thunder. Like, I was a great player and you didn't let me contribute the way I wanted to, something like that. I don't know. I get frustrated with Natchez a lot. There's times where he seems to force like a fancy play when I'm like, dude, just pass the damn puck.
It's just a young player thing. I think too. Mm-hmm. I think you're right though. Was coming in, Holla got hurt, and he just pretty much came in last year that year we traded Holla.
Yeah.
And just kind of took his spot almost, and was probably seen as a threat. And that's probably why they have that beef. I don't know. It's weird. Holla was so liked his first year here. He was one of our top scorers the first quarter, at least of the season. Yeah. And then he had that really unfortunate accident, like the miscarriage with him and his wife. And then he had an injury, and then he came back and was getting nice time. He probably wanted, I don't know. Maybe it's we all hate him because it's a recognition thing too. Lindholm kind of brought it on himself too, and we kind of boo him. And
he's an easy scapegoat.
And he's with a new team, and he's trying, fit in there too, and win those fans over. I'm not fully aboard the Holla hate. I mean, yeah, it's fun. I boo him whenever he's on, like the last game everyone's booing him, but I'm not like
yeah, I'm not ready to cast Holla out of my
he's not Tom Wilson.
Yeah, I really liked Holla when he was in Vegas, and I've picked him up in fantasy for the last couple of years. So for me, I have a soft spot for Holla, but it was kind of sad to see him fall from grace from the Canes. I'm just very thankful that I didn't buy a Holla jersey. I chose to pick a real winner like Joel Edmondson. But yeah, I mean, I think going on with the topic of how bad the reffing was in this series, let's move on to everyone's most beloved figure, Dougie Hamilton, because everyone is raising. Well, not so much after the last game. I think he looked fine in Game 5, but everyone was ready to let Dougie walk after Game 4.
He's a polarizing player. I think every 2 games, either love him or hate him.
Mm-hmm.
If we give him a long-term contract, it's going to have so much boom bust potential, and the bust potential is going to be way more than the boom.
But yeah, like you saw my tweet, I was like, he's our very own Jeff Skinner if he stops scoring.
I don't know. I think I'm going to be a Dougie supporter this episode,
okay,
guys.
I'll be the devil, and you could be the angel on the shoulder right now.
I'm gonna be the Dougie protector. So Jay Fresh posted an article. He's a hockey analytics on Twitter. It was just about Dougie's usage and his pairings over his career, and it was a model taking his defense with and without people. And before, he's been paired with Slavin most of his career in Carolina, and with Calgary he was mostly with Giordano, who's a Norris guy. He's top defenseman for Calgary for a long time. And so he's kind of had a stalwart D guy on his left side in Calgary and in Carolina. And anyway, the analytics that supported this were both Giordano and Slavin were actually worse off defensively without Dougie, and Dougie was actually had better defense numbers without Slavin and without Giordano, which was really interesting. And I don't think the narrative is that Dougie is a better defenseman than Slavin or Giordano, because that'd be crazy. It's more of, I think Dougie is so good at driving the offense, but aside from hockey analytics, I think he's just so valuable in the offensive zone. Like you see Gardner, and that's, where he shines too. He's good and he's good enough in the defensive zone where just being average is good enough because he's just so good offensively. We haven't had a defenseman like him. We've had Falk, and was a whipping boy as well.
Same fan perception.
So it's kind of like, would you rather have Falk or Dougie?
I'll take Dougie.
Yeah, and
I'd take both of them. Honestly, I kind of miss Falk.
He's in the Norris running, if he's healthy, 82 games, and that's someone you don't want to just like leave to free agency. I think we need to sign him. Anything north of $8 million, of course, is too too much money.
I was gonna part of what you said about the pairings, the defensive pairings. His partner has better defensive statistics according to analytics. It doesn't necessarily tell the whole story though, right? Because kind of your same sentence you were talking about, Dougie's like very offensive minded, so maybe his partner, the strengths lean more towards defense. I mean, obviously Jacob's amazing defenseman, but that's like his strength, is just shutting down the other team. So like maybe it just makes because Dougie can focus on the offensive side of the game, his partner can just kind of go, okay, well, Dougie, is jumping up with the play, like playing the puck, shooting it from the point. I can kind of play back and play to my strengths.
Yeah, you see, it's hard when you have like Shea with him or someone that doesn't really know when Dougie's gonna pinch or not, or like they can't adapt to it as well as Slavin has, and it's just kind of it runs all the way through our D lines when you don't have that perfect guy for Dougie, and the house of cards comes down, and we saw that in like 3 and 4 when like odd man rushes were going back the other way.
Well, I'll be the negative asshole as per usual. Who's to say that Dougie's shitty defense doesn't make Slavin play twice as hard, and that he knows that he has to play harder to pick up what Dougie lacks in, and so he plays better as a defensive player. I mean, I'm not being a smart ass. I'm just saying it could affect Slavin's performance because he knows he has to carry extra weight. But I think you have a good point about him, like the fact that Dougie can drive the offensive and he can be a real presence in the offensive end allows Slavin to kind of settle back and be prepared to play defense. It's not his job to try to create offensive opportunities anymore because he has someone on the line with him like Dougie.
Yeah, and like knowing when to pinch is like everything too. It's kind of a good forecheck also is a good, it's better than the trap. And with keeping the play going, and we've seen Hakanpää, we've seen Bean get like pinch wrong. Doesn't matter how good his other pairing is. It's like a 3-on-1 or 2-on-1. You can't really clog the neutral zone in time or something for a bad pinch.
Yeah. Well, before I go on my Dougie hate train, I'm gonna have to preface by saying that like I actually really like Dougie. There's just certain things about Dougie's game that bothers me.
I like him as a person. This isn't personal.
But it's not even so much of him as a player. Like I think Dougie's good, and I would prefer to sign Dougie. I don't want to try to fill Dougie's shoes. That's literally the worst thing the Canes can have to do after this season is try to find someone to replace Dougie Hamilton. It's hard to do because Dougie is a good defensive player, at least from an offensive perspective. And he's not a bad defensive player. He's just kind of slower. And so if you're relying on him to be the odd man rush on a breakaway, like he's the last guy you need guarding the goalie, basically. Mm-hmm. And my real issue with Dougie is purely from a contractual standpoint because he's asking so much money. I don't know if I would pay him $8 million if he quit scoring goals, because we've all seen good players have off seasons. Svetch is having one right now. If Dougie Hamilton stops scoring, stops getting assists, he becomes our Jeff Skinner. We're paying him $9 million, $8 million, and he's not putting points on the board, and he's lackadaisical on his own end, and mistakes lead to losses. And then everyone hates Dougie, and then we're paying a lot of money, and then he gets down on himself, and it's a giant fiasco. Now, the real issue I have with Dougie Hamilton, and I've been saying this since he came over, despite like, this is the one thing where everyone's like, oh, everyone hates Dougie after he starts playing bad. He has 2 bad games. Everyone hates Dougie. I'm like, no, I talk shit about Dougie year round. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep on doing that. I praise Dougie when he needs to be praised, but I talk shit when he needs to have someone talk shit about him. The man is lazy. He's always giving up on the play before the whistle blows. It happened the other night when Ned failed to cover the puck. Dougie had already turned and headed like he was going to the bench. And the play was still live. The puck was still there. If he had played through the whistle, which is like they teach you that in Pee Wee hockey, like he would have been a body and a presence in front of the net, like when Ned didn't cover the puck. Instead, they scooped the puck up, scored a goal, and we lost the game. Dougie's constantly failing to hold the blue line. And for me, it just comes down to the fact that he's not willing to, like, he just looks like he's asleep on the ice sometimes. He doesn't look like he cares. And it just pisses me off. Like I said, he's not a bad defenseman. It's just, is he worth $8 million? And is he going to be worth $8 million if he stops scoring goals and getting a bunch of assists? I say no, but again, that doesn't mean I want to get rid of Dougie. It doesn't mean that there's someone better for us. I mean, yeah, if we can get Shea Theodore in here, that'd be great, but I don't think he's coming. So I'm fine with Dougie. I just need him to play through the whistle, not get lazy, and just kind of keep his head on his shoulders. He seems like he's too easy to get down on himself. That's my big thing with Dougie's. I'm worried he's going to get down on himself and then just crumble.
I don't think he's going to go the whole Jeff Skinner route because his career numbers and like a lot of things have been like pretty level. Whereas like Skinner, even when he's with the Canes, it was like peaks and troughs,
Yeah.
I was looking at Dougie's penalties too. And I know a lot of people rag on him for his penalties. I think so too. Because he got Slavin, who takes like 1 penalty the whole season, and that was a delay game, I think. But Dougie has someone was looking at it, and he's really bad with taking a penalty when it's within 1 goal or when it's tied. And so it's really more blatant, I think, for the fan base to see Dougie's penalties. And I think that might also be a contributing factor to like Dougie sucks. But anyway, I think he's got one of the best shots in the whole league as far as low danger success rates. And you see that where he takes the shots. I was looking at the shot maps for his whole career, and it's just all over the ice. Like a lot of defensemen, like everyone on our team basically, Slavin, Pesci, Gardner, even
timid.
They just they're not very mobile around the offensive zone, and you look at their maps and it's all in one spot or wherever they're pairing us.
Yeah.
And Dougie's is like up from the net, on the side, even the half boards, and he is shooting. He's not afraid to shoot it, and
he wants to shoot it. You watch Dougie play, and that man is slapping his stick on the ice all the time. You hear tap 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 all the time. It's always Dougie.
Anything this far in a career, people would be like, it's a low danger shot, down to it. Anyone else, he's just got such a high percentage of like the puck going in. And even the interviews with Dougie, like the players, they're like, and they're all talking about his shot, that every time he shoots it, they think it's going in. And that's kind of a testament to it. I think no other player has that. It could go in from anywhere. I mean, Ovechkin, but like for a defenseman, it's kind of rare. And that's why he has so many goals throughout his career. And we've never had like a Canes.
We've never had our own Drew Doughty or Eric Carlson type figure.
Yeah. And that was Falk for so many years. Like he's, power play, score. We have a true one in Dougie. And it's hard to find someone like that. I mean, the Capitals had John Carlson. I think John Carlson's contract is probably the biggest comparable we have to what we can expect from Dougie, because John Carlson also he's really knocked for his defense too. And so he's getting paid $8 million. And with the flat cap, I think we can expect something that or south for Dougie.
So for those of you that don't know, Kenny Griffin is actually a wizard, and he conjures up spells on this podcast by talking shit about people, and then they magically have good games. So now do not be surprised at all if game 6 comes around and Dougie Hamilton has like 5 points.
Yeah, that has happened so far this since we started recording the podcast. Every time I single out a player for their faults, they like turn it up and make me eat my words, which I'm more than happy to eat my words. And I don't know, like I said, I don't hate Dougie. I don't want to not sign Dougie. I expect, that's the problem with Dougie, is I know what he's capable of, and so I expect so much from him. And so I get pissed when he looks lazy or when he doesn't play through the puck or through the whistle. It just drives me insane.
Yeah, you're right. I'm the same way too. Like you see that, the giving up on the play. It's a miscue, but it's so blatant that it makes it so much worse.
Yeah. Well, he's just one of those players where, like, I mean, you see it even with Svetch. It's easy. It's easy to see the fans turn on him when they stop scoring and they stop having, big point nights. Like, someone was talking about how Svetch was overrated the other night. I'm like, no. Svetch is still underrated. He might not be having his best season, but like, he's an underrated player and he deserves to be paid more. And which is kind of why I get pissy about Dougie and his contract. It's just like, just don't pay Dougie $8 million, scrape some of that, and pay Svetch, pay Aho, pay the people that perform every night and they're consistent always. Like, I never, Aho never lets me down. So why would you not give him that money instead of Dougie? But no, I mean, we have to find a contract with Dougie. It just needs to be the right contract, and Dougie he just needs to get his shit together. But they all do. It's not like Dougie's the only person that needs to get his shit together. A lot of players on our team look sloppy all the time. It's just we expect the most from Dougie.
Everyone gets, they hear it from the fans all the time. McDavid heard it in the sweep, and
who's McDavid?
Yeah,
Never heard of
like
that name.
Dougie, but like he plays for Edmonton.
No, he doesn't. No, you're making things up.
he made like a bad pinch or like during a defensive change or something for the overtime, and that overtime losing goal for them.
Is McDavid that guy, the backup goalie?
He looks like the caveman in the Geico commercial. I think that's who he was.
That's pretty accurate. Oh man, yeah, McDavid, poor bastard. Did you see the meme of him with like the two like elderly Asian couple like grabbing his arms at the airport or something, and his face is like pure shock, and someone memed in the words like pain and suffering on the Asian couple.
Like they from Edmonton.
Yeah, it was a good meme. I think I saw it in Spit and Chicklets. They steal all their crap from everybody else. Good people, good hardworking people like ourselves that sit in the meme factory all day. I do appreciate how much recognition Jacob Slavin has gotten recently from his notable presence being out of the lineup and how much that's hurt the team. Pace brought it up whenever, I don't remember who it was, asked us who our favorite Canes past and present was, and Pace said Slavin because he was just so undervalued, and he's really our all-star defensive player. Like, him going to the all-star game and covering for Dougie when Dougie got hurt, it was almost like he was the one who was supposed to go all along. And he won a skill challenge, which is just badass. So
I think if we didn't have Slavin, like, obviously game 2 would be that's our formula to win, right? Like, we're so thin on defense that maybe at home we can dictate the matchups and kind of hide some things, but on the road, Nashville they have the game plan to beat us. Like, they're just going to grind the game down, make us tired. And you get into overtime and you have like Pesci and Brady Shea putting up big minutes. And we have like, you're pretty much forced to put bottom pairings out there. And it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Are y'all ready to answer some fan questions?
Let's do it.
They're Caniac listener questions, Griffin. I thought we were trying to stray from the fan thing. I got mad at Caniac.
Oh, yeah.
For calling them fan questions. I corrected him.
Well, Caniac Andrew called it fan mail in the tweet that he sent today, and I was like,
we need to have something for it. We need to have like
Blue's Clues.
We need to have something for it, like that's specific to us. Like,
just got a letter.
Well, I was texting. I think I was talking to Pace the other day when I was like asking him about some edits for the podcast, and I was like, yeah, we need to come up with a name for our listeners. I was like, because Caniac is just too broad. There's plenty of Caniacs that probably either hate us or don't listen to us. So we need something for our own fan base. I mean, I'm sure it will inevitably come into its own. But at this current moment, they're Caniac listener questions. Thank you for correcting me, Pace.
I need to watch Joe Dirt, and maybe I'll come up with something.
Maybe a little deliverance. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, we have a fair amount of Canes questions. We're gonna start with Andrew because he sent us the first one, and it's arguably the funniest one. So Andrew wants to know, why does the NHL hate us? Is it because Rod is the best looking coach in the NHL and Bettman looks like a clown? Is it because we drastically underpaid Aho? Is it because we play lacrosse instead of hockey? And then he said, we're just rednecks trying to have fun.
Great question.
Yes.
Yes to all.
They hate us because they ain't us.
Yeah.
They hate us because they ain't us.
Caniac Jason said, see all of the above. But yeah, I mean, do y'all get the feeling that the NHL hates us? I used to have that feeling back in the day. I was like, we don't make money for them. They don't like us. They're not going to call shit in our favor because why would you? But
I
now
think
I
the
feel like
NHL
they
hates
might
us.
like us.
I think the NHL hates us because uh, Rod's in there in the intermission, just like getting a sweet bicep pump in between each period.
They just can't handle the swole.
Gary Bevan's, maybe he does. Maybe he hates it on the outside, but loves it on the inside.
Maybe. I don't know. People seem to think that the Canes are like an NHL favorite now. It's like, oh well, yeah, of course they're going out of their way to help the Canes, and I'm like, what? What team are we talking about right now?
That is weird to hear. It is
Oh,
like we're on the
nice.
other side now.
What is that like? Like, what is it like being a New England Patriots fan, where you just like get the calls? I mean, obviously not anymore. They don't have Tom Brady, but like when they did have Tom Brady, like what did they realistically ever have to complain about? Like they always got the calls. They had Brady. I had a friend who is not a listener of the podcast, so I can tell the story. And he's also not a Caniac, so I can rag on him a little bit. But he's a huge Patriots fan, and like in the regular season, they would score touchdowns, and like he wouldn't even clap. He'd just be like, "Yep, that was cool. I'm gonna go back to looking at my phone." Like he just so totally tuned out of the game, because like they have so much success that he's just numb to it.
I can't imagine being a part of that fan base. Like I was telling Chelsea, I was like, it sucks being like the first seed. Like I hate not being the wild card story. I still feel like we're the underdogs, even though we're at the top of the division.
We will be the underdogs if we play Tampa.
You were correct. But to go back to Caniac Andrew's point, the NHL probably does hate us because Rod is the silver fox, and our coach doesn't look like Todd Reardon, and Todd Reardon looked like a thumb. That's how I feel about Todd Reardon. Bald bitch. He looks like a thumb. Anyway,
It's hard to believe he used to play hockey like in the NHL.
yeah. And Don Cherry.
Yeah, Don Cherry. Time's a bastard.
I was watching Don Cherry highlights today for some reason. I have no idea how I got on that train, but I started watching Don Cherry highlights.
He had a lot of like good, like it was good to watch, like his show.
Can you imagine
Especially,
trying to edit his podcast?
Oh no,
Terrible.
I think his co-host, McLean, had like, I think he has like lifetime PTSD from just trying to keep him in check.
Yeah, it'd be stressful. Oh man, Don Cherry, what a guy! I love Don Cherry. I have a love-hate relationship with Don Cherry.
I got a love-hate relationship with him too. I'll love to hate him.
He's just a senile old man.
Yeah.
I feel bad for him. He's like shit in his pants while he's yelling about the Canes on national television. And everyone's like, man, that guy's an asshole. I'm like, man, I just feel bad for him. Oh my God. All right. Caniac Johnny wants to know our game 6 predictions, and he wants to know specifically if it'll end in regulation.
So maybe instead of just doing game 6, since this is probably gonna come out the day of game 6, we should talk about just rest of the series predictions.
Fair enough.
My prediction for the rest of the series is that we are in for a dogfight, regardless of the outcome. We saw how game 5 went, and I kind of thought with Jacob back, I thought that we were just going to smack them, and it didn't happen. We were in for another, oh God, it was a teeth-pulling, grinded-out type game, and Nashville is playing it so well right now. It wouldn't surprise me if game 6 comes along and it's like 2-2 and we go in overtime again. And then, at that point, it's kind of a coin flip, and then we go to game 7. So I really think that I'm not going to make any like, oh, we're definitely going to win the series, because I think we're going to win the series. But, that it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, I'm afraid. I think it's Nashville's back against the wall tomorrow, Thursday. And game 7, it's it's going to come down to Slavin's health and the way Ned plays, or really the way Nashville's been playing us. They're just, holding that trap. They're just letting us come through. They're not even forechecking us. They're just letting us take breakout passes, because we're never really that pressured in our own zone unless it's like during the cycle. Anyway, the game 6, I think, is going to be a slugfest. In game 7, hopefully, not hopefully, if it comes to it, we've defended home ice so far, so I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried of a little reverse capital story going on right now. But I was telling Pace before you got on, I have this weird feeling, and I'm going to knock on wood again, that I feel like the Canes are going to slap Nashville really hard. on game 6. Like they're going to come out and they're going to play the way they've played all season, and they're going to get 2 goals on Nashville, and Nashville's going to crumble because they're a team that just crumbles under stress. So I'm staying incredibly positive for game 6.
Griffin is not the cynic for once. What's going on here?
Yeah, I have to throw you a curveball every once in a while. Otherwise, y'all don't know what to do with me. We got 2 questions from Caniac Riles, who is a fan of the podcast and also has his own podcast, Burning Bridges with Uncle Riles. So go check that out. Riles wants to know, do we think Slavin will play the same amount of time as in game 5?
Yeah, I think it's likely that Slavin is probably healthy enough to play the same number of minutes. I mean, anything can happen in a game. You know, he could take like a rough hit or something, and you know that could seriously skew the answer to this question. But yeah, I think obviously none of us are insiders or anything, so we don't know like the extent of his injury. But I think it's pretty safe to say that Slavin's going to play if he's healthy. He's going to play Slavin minutes.
Well, Rod gave an interview today, and someone asked him if Slavin was going to play game 6, and he said, "I don't know. I haven't asked him about his health. I don't want to know yet." So I think everyone wants Slavin to play, but no one wants to ask Slavin how he's feeling on the off chance he goes, "Yeah, not great, coach." Slavin's going to dig in and play what he has to play because Slavin's the kind of guy that digs in. Dig in.
Dig in. He digs in.
He digs in.
Yeah,
give that man the shovel a
defensive
year
defense.
for real.
If it goes in overtime too, I think that because he had, I don't know, I see him playing the same amount of minutes like Pace said too.
Yeah. Riles also wants to know, how the hell do we find a way to score on Saros? It's a very good question, and if you have an answer, please send it to the Canes because I think they could use it. Other than Natchez figured it out.
We tried to we tried to put people in front of him so that he couldn't see really well, including some of Nashville's players were trying to help us out and do that, and it still didn't work very well because we're playing 9-on-5.
Yeah, don't try to score any clean goals because that doesn't work.
Yeah, those don't count.
Just put Trocheck in the corner and make him bank shots off of Saros' head all game. I love Trocheck, man. Easily the best trade we made in a long time. Getting rid of Holla and unfortunately letting go of our boy Lucas. Caniac Chelsea wants to know which Predator we hate the most.
Yeah, that's tough. I think
Holla.
Yeah. Right now, yeah, Holla is definitely the one, I think. But there's it's hard to like choose one other than Holla because all the other Nashville guys are like pretty evil, and like they've all been doing like petty crap, but they've all kind of spread it out amongst themselves. I think Benning, Kunin, Arvidsson last game. Arvidsson was hurt last game.
Yeah,
we can't hate him. I don't know.
I can hate whoever I want to hate. Benning's probably the one that pisses me off the most, if not Holla. Holla's just the easy man to hate right now.
Ekholm gets him some scrums, but he doesn't really win them or like. I don't know. Benning was the one that punched Martin too on the ground.
It's one of those awkward moments because it's like the whole reason I enjoy hockey is because I'm friends with Connor, and Connor's parents took me to games all the time when I was a kid. And Connor's mom's from Nashville, so she's originally a Predators fan, and so Connor has a soft spot for the Preds, and he doesn't have a choice. I've decided to tell the fans that Connor has a mild soft spot for the Preds. He's still a Caniac, live and die. Even when it comes
more of a redneck, okay?
Yeah, it just adds to his Southern heritage. And his other number 2 team is the Blues, but we don't have to go into that.
Just out me.
I just told Connor's entire. I gave you Connor's baggage. But I think you would agree with me though that like, but even if you don't have the background that we, that like I've basically just taken your hockey love and just like applied it to my own life. But there's like a certain soft spot for Nashville just being another Southern team that has their own little redneck traditions and likes to tailgate and do crazy shit like throw catfish on the ice. So they're not a team that I hate other than the fact that we're playing them right now. Right. So like once we beat them or lose to them, if we lose to them, I'll probably hate them more. But once we move beyond this series, I'll probably go back to being kind of neutral regarding.
Yeah. 5 games in, it's kind of a breath of fresh air compared to Boston series and the Washington series, where every single call on the ice was like like a war between every single social media.
Yeah.
Every hit. And it's the Nashville fans are just like there because they like what the heck's this? This crap is dope.
It's a spectacle for them.
Yeah. They're not as big either as far as fan base. Even after all their runs. They're Laviolette bros. So they understand us. That was our coach.
Can't talk about Laviolette, man. He's a cap.
I know. Well,
He's on. He's moved on to terrible and worse things.
At least they're not in the playoffs anymore.
Oh, we have one more question for Chelsea, but it's quick. I'm going to answer it, and we're not going to give any explanation, and people can go look it up if they want to. Chelsea, she thought this was going to be a funny question for us to like go on about, and I was like, I don't think that's going to work. She wants to know what we think Jacob Slavin's favorite Bible verse is, but I can tell you what Jacob Slavin's favorite Bible verse is because he's a good, wholesome boy. He's got it in his Instagram profile. It's Galatians chapter 1, verse 10. Go look it up. Caniac Trey, well, one is just a random point, but he wants us to have our own signature sign off for a catchphrase so that he doesn't, he gets bummed out when our podcasts end on a random note. And he wishes we had like a little sign off or something funny that we said at the end of every podcast, which I mean, it's not a bad idea. I also like how we randomly just say some ignorant, stupid thing and then banjo start playing. So I don't know. I've got mixed feelings on whether we have a consecutive sign off or whether we just let it trail off.
Here's looking at you, Caniacs.
Honestly, we'll have to mull over. We'll sleep on that one and see what we get. We'll see what we come up with if we come up with anything. Right now, we're gonna stick with the last stupid funny thing Connor says and then banjos.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. But that's the nice thing about this podcast is we've always come up with something stupid and funny I've never had an issue with being like that's the last funny thing that we say and just moving on and banjo. But Caniac Trey also wants us to pick like who are our preferences for sounding the sirens in the future. He wants Ric Flair. Who would you pick if you could pick your one siren sounder? Who would you pick? I've got mine. I'll let y'all go.
Yeah, Ric Flair is not very popular in the Panthers fandom realm because he has so many NFL allegiances, even though I think he's from Charlotte. I don't know. Who would you guys pick? I didn't have time to think about this one.
Bring back Greg Fishel.
Oh my God. I miss Greg Fishel. But Connor, you got any other funny?
It's got to be someone that's like universally loved. I'm trying to think of like universally loved.
It doesn't have to be universally loved. It just has to be funny.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Maybe probably like Dale Earnhardt Jr. People would.
Yeah, I don't know why we don't have more like NASCAR drivers. I mean, I guess they just don't care about hockey, but there's so many great NASCAR drivers from NC.
I don't know.
Scotty gave it his best.
Tom Wilson. Tom Wilson do the siren.
Hang on. So oh my God. Who are you saying, Pace?
Scotty gave it his best go the other night. I think he was really trying to give us like a Luke Kuechly siren. And Luke Kuechly he actually broke the siren when he did it. So
he brought it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the siren itself was broken. So I don't think that anybody's gonna be able to do that.
Well, I'll say this. Y'all have heard me bring this up before. I think they play a siren sound during the playoffs when celebrities do it, so it doesn't sound like crap. Because I've never seen a bad celebrity siren sound.
It's always really loud too, and then there's a ton of noise in the arena, so that would make some sense.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty tore that thing up regardless, but I'm always skeptical of whether the sound is really as good as we think it is.
I think there's a cap too with how loud it can go. Like it winds up. But a lot of people gave Marley Drug Girl crap. Sorry, I don't know her name. I'm just gonna call her
Kate Geralt.
I don't know if that's Kate.
It's Kate Geralt.
So she a lot of people gave her a bad time with her siren sounding because it didn't really escalate to Luke Kuechly's.
you can't expect Luke or Kate. You can't expect Marley Drug Girl to perform the way Luke does. And if you expect that, then you don't even understand the reason for Marley Drug.
So that's the only one that I've can even reference that it was people had a substandard for it.
I'll give you my three. One I developed mid podcast. Number one is James Taylor. Why am I not hearing Carolina in my mind? Why are we not hearing that song while they're scraping the ice? I have big questions. Bring out that good old wholesome man and his guitar and let him play some sweet ballads for us.
Well, Griffin, he's not even from North Carolina, but
I don't care. He lived in Chapel Hill for a long time. He counts.
To attest to your point, that was one of the first people that came to my mind. So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, James Taylor for sure. I just feel like why not? I think he's from Massachusetts, so he's probably a Boston fan, but whatever. The other one I had was Zach Galifianakis. You know how funny it'd be to watch that man sound the siren?
Yeah.
He's from Wilkesboro. Like, why not?
Oh yeah.
All right. So the last one I have is if our Canes win, Dave Matthews Band playing GIF tweet kicks off. I think we should have the guy that plays Starburns come and sound the siren. With his top hat on. If you don't watch Community, then go watch Community and get a life. If you do watch Community, you know what I'm talking about. Give me your last ones. We got 2 minutes.
I mean, there's been so many good ones already given off. I'll just give a quick one. I'll say Steph Curry because he's a North Carolinian and he plays basketball.
I forgot my other one. Michael Jordan. Why was Michael Jordan not sounding the siren?
That's another good one. Yeah, he'd be a great one.
The building would probably literally like collapse due to noise screaming. Like people would lose their absolute shit.
But the ceiling is the roof, Griffin.
You're right. You're damn right. Michael Jordan seems like the obvious big one, so I don't know why that's not a thing. But
that would bring a lot of coverage too.
Big local guy, I think Lavelle Moten. I think he's the NCCU basketball coach. But he's the Canes are 4-0 and he does the
really?
Yeah, he said that on Twitter today.
Wait, who?
Lavelle Moten. He's big on 99.9, the local radio station around here.
That's who you want to sound the siren?
No, I'm just saying he's a good siren person.
Oh. You know who else I'd like to sound the siren? Old Greg.
Ian McKellen.
No, old Greg. Hey, well, yeah, if Gandalf wants to show up and sound the siren, I'm not going to tell him no. I feel like Tripp should sound the siren. Someone can cover for him until he's done sounding the siren, and then he can run up to the box.
Oh, man, he'd be jazzed.
Name a bigger Caniac than Tripp Tracy. You can't. There isn't one. There's not a single damn Caniac bigger than Tripp Tracy.
He digs in.
He digs in.